Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. There's a new German premium battleship. So of course I was extremely excited about this and actually have spent some time, playing this thing. This is the Pommern. Pommern being the German term for the region of Pomerania, which is kind of in the middle between Poland and Germany historically, and has been the name for several ships, but this one actually didn't exist, to nobody's great surprise. None of the H-class battleships eventually existed, because this is an H-class battleship. Now, the H-class were supposed to be bigger Bismarck Tirpitz style ships with bigger guns in order to challenge the British at sea. But they were never really completely constructed because everybody got a little bit frustrated with the, the cost and the lack of performance of the surface ships, and eventually resorted to just using submarines. So what is this then? This is now, and I have actually consulted the reference material as much as I could. Wargaming claims this is an early design draft. So it says here that it was essentially a draft design for an H-class battleship, equipped with 380mm guns. The 1937 design, which is the H-39, the first design of the H-class, was calling for 406mm guns. And the reason for that is that the Germans wanted bigger guns, or more firepower than their adversaries. And the only guns they had available at the time were the 380s that were on the Bismarck and on the Tirpitz, and they had designed and tested a 406mm gun. They didn't have anything larger than that, and they already actually had problems building the 406s because the priority was, the guns for the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, and for the Soviets, because they were friends at the time, and they were supposed to deliver some over there as well. So 406mm was eventually chosen as the caliber of choice, because also the Japanese didn't sign a treaty, and then escalator clause, and the usual stuff. The 380s wouldn't really have been considered on H-39. Maybe they were talking about it early on, but there was never really a design. The initial design had the 406mm guns that we find on the Friedrich der Große in Tier 9. Also, the 380s never existed in a triple turret configuration. So I'm reasonably certain that this design didn't exist, but it's not completely unlikely. It's more of a what if the Germans had decided that instead of going with 8 406mm guns, they would go with 12 380mm guns. So what do we have here? Well, let's compare her. Let's compare her to a bunch of other ships. First of all, Tier 9. Tier 9 is interesting because you go from the Bismarck in Tier 8, which is an absolute excellent ship, to the Friedrich der Große in Tier 9, which can be a little bit of a downer because, she does have more armor and bigger guns. She's also vastly less maneuverable and is, generally very difficult to play, especially if she gets into Tier 10 battles. And we'll get to that in a second. But let's compare the Pommern probably to the most similar ship, to the Tirpitz. So the Pommern obviously has more hit points and more armor, given that it's a progression from the Bismarck design to the H-class design. The Tirpitz is obviously more maneuverable, and the guns on the Pommern are on paper the same as the Tirpitzes, but they take 25 seconds to reload. I'm not sure what's up with all these. I mean, I've been complaining about the 23.5 seconds on the Soviet battleships, but that looks reasonably quick in comparison to this. 25 seconds. Other than that, they have worse HE performance, but other than that are completely identical to the Tirpitzes or the Bismarck's guns. The secondaries are completely identical to the Tirpitz's secondaries. The auto secondaries are on paper the same as the Tirpitzes, but they have a better range, which is good too. And she gets torpedoes, just like the Tirpitz. So we have 2 quad launchers of torpedoes, 1 on each side, standard German torpedoes, exactly the same as on the Tirpitz. The AA is better and a small caliber than on the Tirpitz, but it's still not like a grand amount of AA. And the concealment is obviously worse because it's a much, much bigger ship. So if we compare her to the Friedrich der Große on Tier 9, the Tech Tree H-Class H39 design, we see that armor and hit point is, for all intents and purposes, identical. She is a tad more maneuverable than the Freddy. And obviously the guns are very different, because the Friedrich gets 8 406mm guns with a 19-second reload, and this thing gets 12 380s with a 25-second reload. But then again, the secondaries are completely identical, so are the auto-secondaries, and the Freddy obviously does not get torpedoes. The AA is still actually a little bit better on the Pommern than on the Friedrich. And the concealment is identical. So what do we have here? We have a something that is slightly similar to the Mainz. We have the lower half is very clearly the Friedrich der Große hull. But the top side is kind of a Tirpitz, just with triple turrets instead of twin turrets. So what's kind of the problem that she's facing? Well, there's a huge difference between Tier 9 and Tier 10. And there's a progression from Tier 8 to Tier 9, and then there's a big gap from Tier 9 to Tier 10, both in terms of firepower and in terms of armor. Now, you do get very, very heavily armored ships in Tier 10, and you get ships with 457, 460mm main guns in Tier 10, which is not something you generally see around in Tier 9, with very few exceptions. But it is a very different play style if you're in a ship like this in a top tier or bottom tier battle, because while she does have more armor than most, except for the Friedrich, most of the Tier 9 battleships, it still doesn't quite stand up in the same way at Tier 10 if you were playing her the same way as you were playing in Tier 9. Now, the Große Kurfürst is a completely different story. So Kurfürst has extremely thick armor for Tier 10, so as a German battleship. And German battleships do need to get close to things to get, well, their secondaries to work. And because usually the dispersion on the main guns isn't the greatest, with this thing you can do that. With this thing, not so much. And again, this is the same problem the Friedrich der Große had. The Friedrich der Große is not an easy ship to play at Tier 9. The other thing here is that obviously these are 380mm guns, and while these are very, very good guns in Tier 8 or Tier 7, they're okay in Tier 9, but they do struggle in Tier 10. So at long range with the 380s, you're often not going to get a huge amount done. Now, they're not bad guns, because once again, these are German guns and they have excellent AP. And if you can get close enough, they can punch through Tier 10 things. You can brawl Montanas in this thing without any issues whatsoever. So that's entirely possible. But you do have to get close. At range, you are going to be outgunned. Which once again presents you with the problem that the armor isn't quite sufficient to easily get yourself into a brawl at Tier 10. So you do have to kind of play her in two different ways, just like the Friedrich. But if you do manage to get close, you can hurt things quite badly, because once again, a very excellent set of armament. So with the elite bonus, you get two choices. You get the improved armor, or you get the better secondaries. Now, this is a German ship, so it is extremely tempting to go for a full-on secondary build. Personally, I think it depends. If you're happy to go ham and just write off Tier 10 games mostly, because you're not going to have the brawling scenarios all that much in Tier 10, and you can be shut down if you're trying to do a push in a Tier 10 game very, very quickly with these large guns, then you can go for the secondary guns. Personally, I think the improved armor is a slightly better choice, because it gives you a bit more survivability, and it gives you a bit of a better chance in a Tier 10 game to survive some shots that you're taking. Other than that, equipment-wise, you do want the secondary bat mod here for range and dispersion. You could, you could be tempted to say she's got 12 guns. I'm going to take the precise aiming mod. But first of all, she doesn't get the precise aiming skill. And second of all, again, these are 380s, and at long range in tier 10, they're not going to be doing a huge amount of damage. And you're negating all your advantages that you have out of the torpedoes, the secondaries, and the general fun of things. This obviously being a German battleship, she is extremely prone to be set on fire. So we do want the deck protection mod in slot 2 and the steering in slot 3, because that is just for the funs in brawls. Before we go to the commander, actually, let's have a look at the ship skills. So unlike the tech tree ships, she doesn't get the precise aim, but she does get a rapid reload, which somewhat makes up for the atrocious reload time, base reload of 25 seconds. Somewhat. It's also not completely bad, because there are some premiums on the German line. I think the Black Bayern had a rapid reload as well. So at least you can reuse the commander for the master reloader skill. So what skills do you want? Nothing really surprising here. The fire supremacy does make sense, because you do get another rapid reload for that one. You could go with recon for better sonar, because this ship, unlike the Bismarck and Tirpitz, is not particularly maneuverable. So you are going to take torpedoes if you're not careful, and knowing that they're coming is generally a good thing. Fully prepared makes sense, because you don't need the marksman skill. So this is actually a health advantage you can get over the standard line, where you would be taking the marksman skill. Extinguisher is definitely the skill you want to have. So is close quarters combat expert for better dispersion on the secondaries, and you do want the master reloader. Now it's not a huge, it's not an absolutely huge downside to take this, even if you're sharing with the tech tree line. So you could go for this, because the alternatives are compartment maintenance, which is a good skill to have in a tier 10 battle, to be honest, or honor seeker. But you could potentially reuse a captain from the tech tree line and just, ignore the fact that the master reloader isn't quite useful. But then again, you also wouldn't be taking marksman. So personally, I wouldn't. If you have a commander to spare, just use one for those lines. And then obviously down the road, you would want APCS and probably horizontal protection expert. So what does the camo look like? The historical camo is excellent, because it's unlike the other battleship camos. It actually gives us secondary battery range instead of dispersion, and it gives us main battery range as well. The dispersion on the mains is actually not bad, even though you don't have the precise aiming skill. So it's definitely usable. There is also the anime mouse camo, which gives us better main battery dispersion. So if you wanted to play a ranged build on this thing, that might work, but personally I'm not a fan of these, so let's not look at that. It's dreadful. And we're just going to stick with the Seaborne Assault for now. Not elite bonus, battle honors, nothing surprising here. 10 battles for some money, and you get 4 titanium. This is titanium, right? Yeah, I got this wrong the last time. It's 4 titanium for destroying 2 enemy battleships, which is trivial. So once again, this is just free resources you get together with the ship. Right. So how do you play this ship? It depends. Let's get into a battle. Let's start out with a tier 10 battle, actually. So here we are in and I think there are only 2 tier 9s in the whole battle, me and the enemy Fletcher over there. But Midway, Monty, Moskva, double Moskva, Gearing, Shimakaze, and the Fletcher being the third destroyer. We're playing Crash Zone Domination. So in tier 10, you have to watch out for your health. You can't just rush out; you'll get killed. And especially things like HE spammers, things like very large caliber battleships, they can take you down very, very quickly. So what are we going to do here? It depends where the destroyer is going. I would like to go A, because A gives me some good cover against the center line. Well, there are no big guns here, but you can have guns with double Vermont and double Yama, and you know they will shut you down very quickly, German battleship or not. So depending on where that Shimakaze is going, let's fire up the engines and start moving out. The range, by the way, on the 380s is, I think, just under 14 kilometers, so they are definitely close-range guns. Now, you do have the health to tank for a little bit. The other thing that you'll notice here is that the gun angles on the rear turrets are absolutely atrocious. Like, you have to give, like, a massive broadside in order to get all the guns to fire, which once again tells you that this is very much a ship that needs to be played at close range. Now, it looks like the Shimakaze is going for A, so we're just going to follow on and see what we can spot and see if we can grab A cup and if the enemy team is making a push here. So far, we know that we know two of their destroyers. Oh, and there's the Fletcher. Hello, Fletcher. Okay, I've got a surprise for you. Yeah, just getting ready to change to HE, and as soon as he's spotted, surprise! Obviously, Fletcher is an issue for the Shimakaze, and from here on out, I'm going to use my secondaries and just want to get him spotted and make sure that he is probably dodging the Shima torps. There he is, and I think he's got a brown alert right now, so he's dropping me, but I'm already slowing down. I will take some torps here probably, but that Fletcher is now lumped against an island. And I've got the rapid reload on for a quick reload, but my secondaries can very much take this thing down a notch very, very quickly. There's the auto secondaries going out, and they already actually take care of this thing, which means we are back in business with. We are back in business, but we are now getting shot at by a Moskva. So I'm just going to empty my HE shells at that thing, and then switch back to the armor piercing. And yeah, something like Moskva at this range. Well, and we're also getting shot at, what is that? Probably the Monty. So yeah, we don't want to push out into this that easily, because you can see we're already 20,000 hit points down. And yeah, Moskva is in reverse. He can cause some fires, and Montana can do a lot of damage. As you can see, like you lose 10,000 hit points very, very quickly in this kind of thing. And at this range, you're not going to do a huge amount of damage as the Moskva. So if the Moskva is disengaging, you're in open ground. There, triple fire from the Moskva. Everything is on cooldown, so I'm backing up. We are holding all three cups. There's no need for me to rush out there. I really just want to wait for my heal to come off cooldown. And yeah, if I had just moved forward, the Montana and the Moskva would have killed me very, very quickly in this ship. So in a tier 8 battle, you can be more aggressive. In a tier 10 battle, you have to pick your fights. So this should be enough. My heal is coming off cooldown, so we can put the engines back on forward. And then once again, we are controlling all three cups because we have dealt with the Fletcher here very, very quickly. The Shimakaze could just focus on bullying the battleships in the carrier over there. We have lost one destroyer of our own, but we've been holding all three cups for a long time. So now is the time when we can actually start moving. And it looks like the rest of the enemy team is busy with our destroyers. So now we can start making a push. But yeah, you do have to pick your battles in a tier 10 game. If you can catch a Montana in a one-on-one and you can get close, then you can totally take one of them on. But if you are pushing out into multiple ships or into large caliber guns out in the open, then yeah, remember, you're not in a Kurfürst. You are effectively in a Friedrich der Große, and you can't do that in the Freddy either. Let's see if we can still get a parting shot out at that Moskva, but I think he's about to kill our Shimakaze. Yep, he's killed one more Shima. So I think we've lost all the Shimas by now. But I think, yeah, the Daring takes out the Moskva, which only leaves the Monty and the carrier at this point. So now we're just, now we're just making a run for it. But yeah, in a tier 10 battle, you do need to watch your positioning and try to get one-on-one engagements. I mean, in a tier 8 battle as well, to a degree. You can't just blindly rush out, but you can take a lot more fire from tier 8 guns than you can take from tier 10 guns. Okay, there's the midway. So let's just farm some damage here. And yeah, 25-second base reload isn't great. So if you need to quickly change ammunition types, that's also not necessarily something you can easily do. But yeah, now we can trigger it. Midway is in a full turn, so by the time he's coming around, our guns are going to be reloaded. And because I've been waiting for a second here, I'm not going to get a full one. But yeah, at this range, you see the difference, right? At a range of about 8 kilometers, I'm suddenly taking half the health of a midway off, whereas at a range of 10 kilometers, I'm not doing a whole lot. So these guns degrade reasonably quickly. And yeah, Des Moines takes them out. Well done, Des Moines. Yeah, the guns penetration degrades reasonably quickly in a tier 10 game at range. So don't be tempted to do the range snipey thing. You're not going to be doing a whole lot with a 25-second base reload. And while we have lost almost all of our destroyers and our carrier, so has the enemy team, and we've been holding the capture circles for the whole duration. So this all worked in our favor. But yeah, you can totally play in tier 10. Just don't expect to play exactly the same way you're playing in a tier 8 game, where you can do a lot of other things. So there's not much more happening. So I'm going to just fast forward that to the end. And the Daring takes the MVP. Well done, Daring. The other destroyers have all YOLO'd to death, but it seems to have worked out pretty nicely on our side. And you know, we're still coming second in the team. And we've done some good things, and we've taken out the Fletcher in the beginning, secured the cup, and made sure that the Shimas were free. But what if you are what if you're top tier? If you're top tier and you get yourself into a tier 9 game, well, I mean, there's only one tier 8 ship in the enemy, 2 tier 8 ships in the enemy team, the Yukikaze and the North Carolina. Everything else is tier 9. So we do have a tier 8 division on our side, so we're a bit short on tier 9s, but let's see what we can pull in this kind of scenario. So obviously Musashi brings Yamato guns into a tier 9 battle. So, but once again, this is something that if you can catch them on a one-on-one at close range, you can actually work with. And once again, it's a domination battle, so that's much appreciated. None of that epicenter nonsense. And we'll be heading over together with the Erland here into A Cup. Now, Erland having a great AA and very, very quick torps. And I think a radar. I think the Swedish destroyers get radar, right? So he should be extremely useful in case we are running into the enemy destroyer. Having our luck, this is probably going to be... I mean, with like 5 battleships and 1 destroyer on the enemy team, well, how much do you want to bet he's on my side? And not on the other side where the cruiser is, who's predestined to deal with these things. Okay, so we are heading over to A Cup. There's this very useful little nook where the island is reaching into the capture circle. So the Erland is heading for that spot there. And so far, we don't know where the enemy destroyer is. We haven't spotted anything. Okay, we're detected, and A is being capped. So, okay, the destroyer is on our side, but the destroyer isn't alone. So I have to slow down, because there's the Musashi. Okay, so we're going to start opening up with the front turrets at the Musashi, and the Musashi's completely missed. He's just like scraped my superstructure a bit. So I am just, putting her in reverse, and the Erland is sitting there. I don't know, hoping to ambush the Musashi, I guess. I'm not sure why. It'd be great if he could deal with the enemy destroyer, but, I don't know where the Yukikaze is, but the Yukikaze has torpedoes. And I don't want to be at the receiving end of those. So I'm just going to back off. And I'm kind of hoping that the Erland is... Oh dear, Erland, what are you doing? You're trying to torp the Musashi, right? How much do you want to bet the Yukikaze is... Yeah, there he comes. He's just been waiting for you to drop your torps. And you've been poking out too far. And you're running into the Yukikaze torps. And you're dead. And I'm not, because I'm actually, reversing. So... And now I have a bit of a problem. Now the Yukikaze has just fired torpedoes and the Musashi is pushing. Now I could kind of try to disengage here, but that would, and it looks like we're having an AFK battleship on our side, unless he's not been doing anything. But that would leave the cap in enemy possession. We are our only destroyer down, And I'm not sure if I can... I don't want to fight the Musashi at long range, and I don't think I can disengage from that thing. So, you know what? We're going to have to risk it. So I'm going to gamble here that the Yukikaze is not going to torpedo me. Otherwise, we're just going to have to deal with it and try to kill that Musashi as quickly as possible. So at this range, the 380s are going to be very dangerous. I mean, so are the Musashi's guns, obviously. But I still have better armor than him. And I have a rapid reload, and he is completely in my secondary range. And at this range, that's going to hurt. And I have torpedoes. I'm not sure if he's aware of this, because this is a relatively new ship. But yeah, the 150s into the bow section, and let's get torpedoes to force him away. The auto secondaries are setting fires. I'm not sure if his damage cons on cooldown. No, he damage cons. Okay, double fire. But now obviously he has to turn out because of the torpedoes. He has to dodge those, which means he can't get his rear turrets to fire. Whereas I'm pretty much broadsiding, but I can get all my 12 guns on target. We'll just get just wait for the reload to happen. And there's one more shot that I didn't want to take, but that is the Musashi dead, and I'm down to half health. So I'm switching over to the high explosive, because I haven't seen anything of the Yukikaze, and switch on the Hydro. And we will see if... No, he's not in the capture circle, because I'm capping. And while I'm detected, so he's within my detection range, but he's not in the cap. So he could be in this gap over there. Just heal up a little bit more very quickly. And I'm no longer detected. Okay, so the Yukikaze is not in my detection range, which means I'm safe, which means I've captured, which means I can now push... Yeah, I can now push towards the other battleships down there. How does it look like? We're leading in points, but we've lost our cruiser and our destroyer early on. So finally we've got the cap secured here, and we can push ahead. And that Iowa is suiciding into these 3 battleships over there. And yeah, that's a full health Iowa, and you are very, very dead. But that means I'm gonna have to take these guys on and see if we can make anything happen over here. I am down to somewhat about half health-ish. I've got one more heal, and there's an Iowa sitting down there and 2 more battleships. But we are 3 kills down to 1. So that Musashi is the only ship that's been killed in this whole battle so far, and we're down to 2 minutes remaining. So I'm gonna have to kill that Iowa over there. And yeah, don't underestimate. Once again, don't underestimate something like an Iowa. These guns can hurt, especially at range. So your objective here is to get close. We are holding 2 of the capture circles, so we are still, even though we're 2 kills behind, we are still close on points. But I need to kill that Iowa, and I need to kill him quick, because there's another battleship over there, and I don't know what that is. Okay, he takes out one of my gun turrets. This is one thing as well that I noticed. They're all shooting at me. This is one thing, and it's in Minnesota, oh dear. This one thing I noticed is that you lose the gun turrets reasonably quickly. Now I am going to get in secondary range of the Iowa, so I'm saving my damage con. But, okay, Iowa's in reverse, torpedoes out. Okay, that's a dead Iowa. So I'm going to start shooting up the Minnesota. And my auto secondaries are firing at the Iowa. Okay, once the guns are reloaded, there come the Minnesota shots. Now again, you do need to give an uncomfortable amount of broadside if you are trying to get your turrets on target. Okay, Iowa's secondary set me on fire, so I'm going to damage con that. I get another salvo out at the Minnesota. Right, where are we at? We are still ahead on points, but we are still 2 kills down. Let's see if we can take the Minnesota down. But at this, again, this is 10 kilometers. At 10 kilometers, you gotta get lucky. At 8 kilometers, it's a completely different story. So there comes the Minnesota salvo, so that's probably the end of me. Yeah, I still managed to get the salvo out, but I don't think at this range I can take him out. Nah, couldn't take him on. So now, it's 1 against 4, but we are ahead on points. Now they are taking B Cup. This is going to get close. Now Roma obviously needs to survive, and we have to hope that the points lead is enough. 40 to 27. Okay, 20 seconds left. Roma needs to not die. Okay, Roma, what are you going to do? 10 seconds difference. There come the Yukikaze torps and the shells coming in. And that's just a beautiful dodge from the Roma. Look at this guy. Perfect dodge. And with 49 to 45, 52 to 48, 52 51, and it takes over. And we win with 1 point. We win with 1 point difference. My gosh, This is as close as we could shave it, I guess. Well done, Roma. Beautiful dodge there. Beautiful. Yeah, but yes, this is what you can do in the Pommern if you get to brawl other ships, even if they're tier 9s. I mean, tier 8s, obviously, it becomes, once again, a much different story, because you're going to start punching through them at ranges of excess of 8 kilometers, whereas tier 9 ships, it might be a little different. But yeah, is this a great ship? Well, tier 9 is difficult to play. You're going to have great games and you're going to have crap games. Because if you end up in a tier 10 game against 4 Shimas and 3 Yamatos, you know, you're not going to do anything. If you're ending up in a tier 10 game where the enemy team's playing poorly, you're going to do great. If you're going to end up in a tier 10 game that is the current traditional long-range snipey battleship kind of play, you're not going to do great, because your guns don't do much damage at range, and staying behind really doesn't make a huge difference. So you can still do things, but it is difficult in a tier 10 game. You do have to pick your battles, go for one-on-ones, and that sort of stuff. But at close range, even in a tier 10 game, you can very much take on something like a Montana without much trouble. But then again, it's the same in the Freddy. Anyway, that is the Pommern, the German tier 9 premium battleship that never existed. It's a fun ship. That's it for today. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye.